Galileo's Prison Run, and Scientific Method Fun. I am, as always, your host, Christopher Paul Dugdale, MED, We are Duncanville High School in these United States, and today is October 30th, 2020. And on this date in history, in 1916, I know what you're going to say. Oh, he's probably going to talk about when Philip Halloween invented Halloween and, because of tomorrow. But no, I'm talking about when my grandpa, Paul Revere Christie, was born in 1916. And yeah, wow, look, it's like it follows you around the room. So yeah, anyway, if my grandfather were alive today, he'd be like, I can't breathe, get me out of the box, there's no air in here, then he would die. So just remember, if you have a wish and you're like, hey, I wish my loved one was back to life, make sure that one, that you hope that they are alive and healthy, and then two, that they are out of the ground or uncremated, because otherwise you really don't know what you're wishing about. Okay? So come on, let's be responsible, people. It's time to do the sciences. Sciences are for now. We're gonna learn how to make 5 horses or a cow. Actually, we're not doing any of those things. So, German mathematician, I think we started to mention Kepler last week. Kepler, he was one of the people that observed that the sun was the center of the universe. And he started to track the elliptical orbits of the planets. He comes up with 3 laws of planetary motion. And this is something that's shared in the science communities, but not really outside of that. So, now we move on to Galileo, who you might remember from the song by Queen. And now I can't remember the name of the song. Dang it. But they say Galileo, and it has nothing to do with anything else other than the fact that he uses his name. So, he's the first European to really regularly view the stars because he invents something called a telescope. And he's able to use different lenses to refract light and be able to look at a bigger view of the universe. He calculates the rate of gravity at 32 feet per second, or for those of you who love the metric system, 9.8 meters per second. Okay? He has a theory that really he has embraced that, from Kepler and Copernicus, that the sun is the center of the universe. Okay? Eventually, the church is going to go after him, though. The Roman Inquisition imprisons him under house arrest for 9 years until he recants. That'll teach you. Kind of. Well, anyway. Isaac Newton, okay? He published his views in a book called Principia Mathematica, okay? And he defined the 3 laws of motion in the universe, okay? And he also creates a beginning of calculus. Now, calculus had really already been created and used by the Mayans before this, but he helps to, he puts it down on paper, so then he gets more credit for it. He also comes up with the universal law of gravitation. Now, the whole theory of him and the apple getting hit in the head and he discovers gravity, that's not really true. That's a big load of crap. So I'm sorry. But under the universal law of gravitation, every object in the universe is attracted to every other object by a force called gravity. Now, whenever I was single, I was pretty sure that that didn't exist, that every object in the universe was attracted to every other object. Because I tried to hit on a lot of your moms. What? Yeah, that's right. I went there. And now I'm going here. Now we're moving on to Galen, okay? And Galen, everything he knows about the anatomy is wrong because he used animals, not people, for dissection. And for some reason, the only thing that would possibly work on is a pig. But if you look at how messed up his drawings are, look at the one on the right at the top. That person's perched like a frog. So I'm wondering what he was studying whenever he did that. Spoiler, frogs. Okay? So, a short 1,300 years later, you have someone that starts to put together another starts to publish something else on the human body, and that was something by Andreas Vesalius. And he publishes On the Fabric of the Human Body. Okay, he presents an accurate view of the individual organs and the general structure of the body. The general structure of the body. So, how close is that to everything we know today? It's very, very, very basic in comparison, but far better than studying, I don't know, frogs and penguins to figuring out how the human body works. And William Harvey showed that the heart, not the liver, was the beginning of circulation. Okay? And he also showed that the same blood runs through the veins and arteries. I'm thankful for William Harvey because of innovations like his. Now I have 5 pieces of metal in my heart that, some like fancy paper clips. Now, as far as is his system really correct there? It looks a little bit simple to me. I don't see anything going, like to your spleen or to your appendix or anything like that. Well, let's go to Anton von Leeuwenhoek. He's the father of microbiology. He discovered blood corpuscles, sperm, bacteria. He invented this thing called a microscope. And that's a microscope right there. I'm not saying it's accurate, but look at him. Does it look like you can really handle things in a science lab with that outfit he's wearing? You try and lean over and it just goes in and wipes it right off the table. So try not to do stupid science from that time period. I don't know what else to say. Well, I'm going to move forward over to the Lavoisiers, who are much better than some of these people. Or I'm going to go to Robert Boyle first. You know what? Forget what I'm going to say. Forget my plan. The PowerPoint's going to do whatever it wants to. So Robert Boyle, he studied chemistry, and he came up with a whole system for Boyle's, he creates what's called Boyle's Law, which is great because his name is Boyle. It has to do with gas, volume, pressure, and their relationship to each other. Okay? So, I used to know this, but I haven't had to use any of my chemistry for such a long time period. He also said that all matter is composed of atoms. Not atom, like, Adam Levine, but like atoms, A-T-O-M-S. Nor is he talking about like at them, like up and at them. Anyway, I digress. Oh, fine, Lavoisiers. I'm glad you finally decided to show up. Thanks a lot for making me look like an idiot. So Anton Lavoisier is the father of modern chemistry. Okay, he invents a system of naming the chemical elements and the fundamental rules of chemical combinations. That's kind of the foundations for everything that we're doing today. His wife Marie Anne Lavoisier translates the works for her husband and made engravings of his work. Okay, so they were a team, which is kind of weird because most of the time, if you were a team with your husband, he received 100% of the credit and recognition, and your existence might not have been recognized. So Paracelsus, he based science on observation, and he creates the macrocosm versus microcosm. Okay, that basically that a human being was a small replica or microcosm of a large world, which was a macrocosm. And he also was someone who would start to treat people with chemical remedies. And he cured a lot of people, but a lot of people called him the homicide doctor. Because, again, he's testing these things out. And the test didn't have the same type of requirements as today, where, you go through trials to make sure you're not killing everybody on Earth. Anyway, sometimes you have to kill everybody on Earth. By the way, you don't. Please don't follow that advice. In fact, do not follow that advice. Francis Bacon. By the way, he's not related to Nathaniel Bacon, who started Bacon's Rebellion. But Francis Bacon is the guy who starts the scientific method. And he comes up with a couple of different thoughts, kind of like inductive reasoning, where evidence leads to hypothesis. Okay? So you're not creating your hypothesis first and then looking for evidence to support it. He starts calling for the re-examination of everything. Okay? And it's now time, under Francis Bacon going forward, that you become dominant over nature and everything that comes from that. And you get to wear hats like that. Okay? But the scientific method is a major point in thought. Just, the whole thought of finding evidence and then trying to find a hypothesis, that supports the evidence that you have. René Descartes, he's the father of modern rationalism. He wrote the Discourse on Method. Okay, the only thing you can be sure of in the world is that you exist. I came with the whole statement of "I think, therefore I am." Okay. He also has the whole concept of deductive reasoning. And he creates laws based on a series of proofs and would only accept things that his reason said were true. Okay? So you had to be able to prove things over and over again for them to actually be a law. Scientific law, not a legal law. No, it's not like you go to jail for mixing. No, anyway, I'm just gonna keep going. Okay, so basically he separates mind and matter. You have Cartesian dualism. Okay, mathematics can help understand the material world because it's a mechanism governed by laws created by God. Okay, and basically all these type of different things go together. You have observation to theory, you have theory to prediction. Okay, that's deduction. And then you have prediction to observation. And these things cycle together to put together the scientific method. And empiricism is knowledge that's derived from sense experience. And I think the difference between this and some of the things that have been discovered before is the fact that they're not saying that God doesn't exist. And this is why the church started to accept it. They're saying this is just an explanation of what God did. And so people were a lot more willing to accept some of the discoveries and creations of science. Margaret Cavendish, she wrote a book called Observations Upon Experimental Philosophy. And she had a major problem with the whole theory that people were the masters of nature. Okay? That, you're not just trying to understand what's going on, but you should command and control everything. Margaret Winkleman, and this is another one of those extraordinary moments where a woman does something and she's given credit for it instead of it automatically being passed on to her husband. So Maria Winkleman, a German woman, assists her husband and she discovers a comet. And she also helps put together the astronomical calendar. But she couldn't go and work as a assistant astronomer at the Berlin Academy because of her gender. That she was a woman. Yeah, being a woman kind of stood in the way of a lot of discovery and innovations of person kind. Okay. Maria Sibylla Marian, she studied insects. And actually, some of her studies on insects are still, read today and studied today because of how phenomenal they were. So she studies insects, the metamorphosis of the insects of Suriname. She also studies a lot of butterflies. I read a little bit of it once. Okay? But it really is a standard in entomology, and so the study of insects. So it's not just butterflies, but the part I remember reading about was the butterfly part. I don't know. Maybe I like butterflies. I'll fight you. Dorothea Erxleben, okay? She's one of the first women to earn a medical degree from a university. Don't know how she pulled that off, since she was a woman, sexism, that kind of thing. Uh, the Courrier des Femmes, the question on women. Okay, so at this time, scientific observation told science that because women have smaller heads and wider hips, they should have domestic roles working in the home, making and growing children. By the way, I never said that everything they did during this time period was perfect. I never said that. Find proof of where I said that, unless you edit this and then you can make me say that. But, okay. I guess you got me there. Witchcraft persecutions, okay. So this kind of goes into this whole change during the scientific method. These ended because torture and hearsay testimony, which led to a more scientific basis for legal proceedings because they found that after a while, you can get someone really to admit to everything if you just torture them enough. I know that's probably shocking to people like you, but 'tis true. Okay, Baruch Spinoza. He was a Jewish Dutch philosopher. Okay, and a lot of the things he wrote were also put on the Index of Forbidden Books. That book of the Catholic Church that said that you were not allowed to read, and it went against went against everything. Okay, he also rejected the view that God was in the form of humans, and said that there's a God, but he's really just the universe. And he was looking at everything rational, trying to find a good explanation for everything. Moving on to Blaise Pascal. Okay, he tried to keep God and science united. Okay, his development of the Pascal triangle showed basically how you can, just basically comparing triangles to each other. And he also created the Pascal's wager, eternal reward versus the sacrifice of earthly pleasures, as kind of the key to making it to heaven. Sorry, my daughter is wondering why it smells so good in here, and I have Vicks in my nose, so I'm concentrating on what I'm doing instead of that.
It smells like meat.
Pinces tried to convert rationalists to Christianity. Okay, so these are all things that came from Blaise Pascal. So, this leads us to the end of today. I hope you all had a good time. I hope you learned a little bit about life, a little bit about love, and that you'll see me in 2 days on the same channel. Remember, we have a test coming up, and I need everyone to be ready for it, okay? Don't let it sneak up on you. So peace and love and broccoli. I'm out.